Welcome to our Find Your Next Six-Figure Infill Deal projects review. We do this every month, the last Friday of every month. This week or this month, we have a few projects that we're going to cover the progress that we made from the previous month. So if you are already invested in these projects, if you've already bought one, this is great for you because you can follow along with the progress made from the previous month. Or if you're interested in buying a deal, this is just gives you some further behind the scenes look at the process we go through and the progress we make on a month-to-month basis. And kind of gives you some more insight into, why things take, time and that kind of thing. A lot of people aren't familiar with development. And so, the biggest comment I get most of the time is just the surprise at how long things take if you don't understand development. So this just gives you a little bit more behind the scenes look and kind of the process and everything. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into my spreadsheet of our projects and share that here. Make sure I have the right screen pulled up first. All right. So we have a few projects that we're working on. I'm just going to run down the list one by one, all the deals that we're involved in. Some of them are paused, some of them are going through entitlements and other things. So we're just going to go one by one. And we kind of keep the same order from month to month, so you can kind of follow along with each progress as or each project as we add. And then we add the newest projects to the bottom. So first things off, we have our Federal Way condo tower. This is a 48 unit planned condo tower on the Boise Bench with views of the Boise foothills along Federal Way. We are currently on pause with this, although we've kind of been making slow progress. Essentially, a few months back, we got when we were going through due diligence, we ran into a little bit of roadblocks with trash collection. So we think there's a way around it, but then we just want to make sure we got in full agreement between the team because we hadn't had all the documents put together and signed. So before we started spending a lot more time and energy and money on the project, we wanted to make sure we were all on the same page and all had the agreement signed. So the current progress is we've now had a chance to all review the initial agreement parameters or partnership agreement. So we will likely have a Zoom meeting in the next week or two, probably next week, to discuss any details, and we'll send those off to our independent attorneys to review, and then kind of finalize those agreements. So hopefully we have some kind of agreement signed, hopefully in June. And then we can move forward with working around the trash access. That was the biggest thing that kind of held us up. We identified several options to proceed, but we don't want to spend the time and money if we're not all on the same page and have an agreement in place. Okay, so then the next thing is the Sycamore 4 subdivision. This is a planned as a 4-unit or 4-home subdivision. So we are trying to rezone it from R1B to R1C. In this neighborhood in particular, that's a little bit challenging, but we have a pretty good plan in place. We originally had a planning and zoning hearing. So the progress we made, we had a planning and zoning hearing scheduled for June 1st. Uh, un Unfortunately, I guess the challenge. So 2 weeks ago, it was scheduled. It was 2 weeks ago today. The sign was supposed to get installed. The deadline was the 17th. Well, the sign company that we contracted to go install the sign apparently had their trailer stolen, and they didn't find that out until Friday afternoon. And unfortunately, they didn't respond to me. And my follow-up, just making sure it was installed. I emailed them Friday. They didn't respond to me until the following Monday, which was after the deadline to get the sign installed. It had to be installed on the 17th, which was that Sunday. And so, unfortunately, we were kind of, in a time crunch to get everything installed. We were waiting on some answers from the owner to move forward. And so it was kind of last minute schedule, and then the sign company kind of, obviously they don't have control over their trailer getting stolen. So it was just kind of an unfortunate situation. Um, so it's just one of those things where sometimes the weirdest things happen. And unfortunately too, the owner here, really is like trying to push things forward as quickly as possible. So that's also like, it kind of sometimes puts additional pressure on the situation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's like when things like this happen, it's really like kind of you know, a kick in the pants sometimes, because you were really hoping to move forward as quickly as possible. And unfortunately, there's only one planning and zoning hearing every month, so now it's kicked over to July 6th. So we'll make sure, now that we're all on the same page, we'll make sure we get the signs installed, or scheduled plenty early. Unfortunately, you do also have a maximum amount of time before the hearing that you can install, so that window is only like 5 days. So, but now that we have a little bit more advanced notice, we can at least schedule it, and then make sure everything goes according to plan. We are going to use a different sign company. What I will say is the silver lining here is that, when we got the conditions of approval from ACHD, it didn't align with what they were telling us via email. And so this will actually give us a chance to go back to ACHD and make sure that their conditions align with the emails that we were sending back and forth. Hopefully they still stick to that, because that helps our argument and being able to rezone and do 4 houses instead of 3, assuming that the rezone is approved. And so we're really pushing for that. We're trying to do this the right way, but also in a timely manner. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult, just because there's a lot of back and forth, and communication doesn't always happen quickly between the agencies and everything. Um, so yeah, if there's any silver lining, it's just that it gives us some time to go to ACHD and get that changed, so that it increases our probability of getting the Planning and Zoning Commission to say yes. Then I'm just going to briefly touch on this. This is my own project. I just have 2 additional building lots in Garden City that I've just been focused on, really, making sure everything is going forward with client projects. I have a little bit of flexibility on my own deal, so ultimately I can hit a pause on this for now. It's build ready, so we just have to finish the design there. But ultimately, I'm just making sure that my systems and processes and people are all in place that need to keep everything else moving forward on other people's projects. Then we have this Denton split. This is another client project that they were splitting off a lot. There's currently an existing house on the existing lot. We're splitting off a 35-foot wide lot. And so we actually had a planning and zoning commission hearing last month, or maybe at the beginning of this month. I forget the exact day. But that I was there for 5 minutes, and literally in the first 5 minutes we were at that planning and zoning commission hearing. They gave us the approval, and that's got to be some kind of record. So that's a huge win. Also, I didn't have to sit there the whole 2 hours. It was in and out really quick, so that was great. The one challenge that we ran into literally after we submitted the application, and I didn't even know about this. Normally, I'm pretty up to date on the proposed changes. I actually knew that they were looking at adding, being able to do 2 ADUs, but I didn't know that they were changing the duplex code. So essentially, they changed the code where you can't actually add an ADU to a duplex. And so they essentially count that as a triplex anymore. So you have to meet the triplex parking standards. And so that kind of threw us a curveball, because we already had a design for 2 parking spaces. So we can't do the duplex plus the ADU, because that would require 3 parking spaces and we don't have that room. But what we can do is a single family home with 2 ADUs. And now we only need 1 parking space. So it's kind of a weird thing, but ultimately it's the same either way. We still get 3 units out of the deal. The only difference is we lose 1 bedroom. But we actually, what that also did is that we can now do 2 ADUs on the existing house too. So we actually lost a bedroom on the new lot, but gained 2 more on the existing lot. So now we actually are the result of that change was a net positive 1 bedroom in that whole complex. And we actually the parking is going to be the same, but the required parking actually got reduced by 1. So the next step with this one is we have a city council hearing on June 16th. We're fully expecting city council to approve it. It's pretty cut and dry. City council will typically go along with planning and zoning, particularly on approvals, unless, one of the neighbors or something shows up and has a big argument, but we don't anticipate that happening. We don't anticipate there being anything major. We're basically fitting inside the box of the zoning code, and the city likes that. All right, then we have a subdivision in Meridian. So it's called First Subdivision. It was a duplex, well, actually a single family home. We converted to a duplex and then we split the lot. So kind of some background on this. This property. We had a realtor partner bring this client to us before we actually fully launched our system. Um, and so, we thought this was a cool project with some good opportunity. Basically, we found out after, what the city basically kind of told us different things between due diligence and once we started submitting applications. And so it went from um, potential 3 units down to 1 additional unit, which we knew was always a possibility. But they also started adding conditions of approval that added to costs. And we didn't have all of our checklists and everything in place. So that kind of, I wouldn't say it caught us off guard. We knew that was a lot of this stuff was a possibility. They just kept adding stuff and it added to the cost. And so essentially it became one of those things where it's the owner is better off really just selling this property and moving on to the next one that's got more opportunity. And our system is much better now. We have better checklists in place. We have a more thorough process. We have all of our guarantees in place. And what I will say is that, this client, when he bought it, we actually didn't have our profit guarantee or our entitlements guarantee. But even though he doesn't have that, we're actually going to waive our next our consulting fee on the next deal he buys, just because it's the right thing to do. Ultimately, he's actually not going to lose money on this deal, which is great. I don't think if he does, it's going to be very minimal, but he's probably going to break even or maybe even make a little bit of money. He's buying the property more than he's selling the property more than he bought it for. He's selling it, he improved it. We have the lot split approved. We just have to pay some fees to kind of finalize that. They just sent that over here like a week ago. And then it got listed. It's pending already for more than he bought it for. So it's a great property or potential for the next investor to buy as a performing duplex now. He actually gets more rents from it than he expected. So that turned out great. So really, it's one of those things where it wasn't it wasn't necessarily a win, but it's also not a loss. It's just kind of a push, I guess I would call it. So, but now that our system is better, I'm actually really hopeful and confident and excited for his next deal that he's going to do. And I think we're going to hit it out of the park with the next one. Um, so basically, the next step in the process here is just closing on that sale and then finding him the next deal. He's been kind of anxious to get another deal going here that makes sense. And we've had several that he's had his eye on. So Then we have our Xenia subdivision. This is in Garden City. This is a five home subdivision. I think 3 townhomes and 2 detached single family. This is going through entitlements. Garden City just requires more more documents or more items to be submitted with their application. So the application process takes a little bit longer than Boise itself. I think we're going to gain some of that time back because they actually subcontract out the reviews. So the review process is typically a little bit more streamlined than Boise, at least the initial review. But we also just want to make sure we're doing everything right on the front end and understand everything properly because Garden City actually did just have some code changes last year. And so and some of it, we've had like 3 meetings now with Garden City, and a lot of their new code kind of conflicts with the old code. So a lot of it is just clarifying that because what we don't want to do is get in a situation where we submit applications and then we get them turned, pushed back to us because we were looking at the wrong thing in the code or didn't understand it fully. So basically just 2 days ago, we had the engineers and myself in the 3rd meeting with the city just to clarify a lot of stuff and make sure we're all on the same page. And so that's looking good now. We are all on the same page. We got the landscape plans in. The engineers have started working on their preliminary engineering. We have the site plan. In fact, let's see, I have this, here's the landscape plan of this project. So pretty simple landscape plan. And what we actually also found out is we might also be able to reduce the width of this road. So the existing road is only 20 feet wide. And we thought we were gonna have to widen it to 1/2 of 33 feet, but it sounds like we might actually be able to only widen it to 27 feet. That should meet ACHD policy. So we're gonna gain a couple feet again, I think. So that'll just help with the overall site. But we have our parking in here, we have our common landscaping, enough common open area. And then we have our fire turnaround area here as well. And then we just kind of rely on the landscape architect to come up with the landscaping there. And then let me see, I think that was it for, oh, here we go. Here's the site plan from the engineers. It'll take a minute to load maybe. So this was their topo survey and then their site plan. And yeah, larger site plan. I think they have some preliminary engineering that they sent over to, but it was just a rough sketch. I don't have access to that right now, but we have the site plan all ready to go and moving forward. So the next steps with this one, we actually, the very next step is scheduling a neighborhood meeting because we have to get that done before we can submit an application. So I just got all the addresses you have to do within a 300-foot radius. So we got those addresses. We'll be sending those out next week. Then we'll get the geotech engineering done. We got a couple quotes there, so we're going to schedule that. And then we are also engaging with an attorney to get the HOA docs going. And then the preliminary engineering should be complete here in the next couple weeks. So we're basically just moving forward as quickly as we can to submit that for design review. So after we do the neighborhood meeting, the next step is design review. Each of these steps takes about a month essentially. So not the neighborhood meeting itself, but the design review is basically a month. So they have 30 days, I think, after we submit the application to go through design review. They may kick it back. We're trying to avoid having them kick it back and doing redesigns. So that's why we're trying to make sure we do everything properly on the front end and understand everything. And then the next step is the Planning and Zoning Commission in Garden City. So that process is again about a month. And then another month after that is City Council. So once we have an approval there, then we get the engineering, we send all the civil engineering or finalize the civil engineering and send that in for approvals. So we're still probably, I think we're still tracking, hopefully to get this fully entitled within a year of the client acquiring this, but we'll keep you posted. I know Garden City sometimes it takes a little bit longer just because if we don't manage it properly, there sometimes gets more kickbacks to the um, or a lot of like more than necessary. There's probably going to be one kickback. There almost always is with any reviews. What we're trying to avoid is having multiple kickbacks, and then that every time it gets kicked back, you have to redesign and then send it back in and get re-reviewed. So we're trying to avoid the multiple back and forth. So doing it right at the front end, and then ideally only one correction round, possibly two, and then getting it approved. Okay, moving on to the next one, we have our Boise Avenue project. This is a double lot split in southeast Boise. There's an existing home on the property. We're splitting two lots from the rear. What's different about this, normally you can't split lots from the rear of the property very well. But this one just has a unique situation where there's a road in the front, Boise Avenue, and then there's a road in the rear as well, that the backyard accesses. But there's a canal there, and then there's this weird situation where there was a parcel created that was never named or numbered when they did the original subdivision, so it basically belongs to nobody. And the canal itself, the previous owners for however long were paying taxes on it. So we saw all that during our due diligence period. So we're trying to basically claim the canal land and also that land that was created that nobody has owned for, since the 50s or whenever it was separated. And so that's just a process. That's basically been the process this whole time. We had some issues with an attorney kind of going MIA, so we got another one. We did get the documents to send to, there's basically 4 different letters we had to send out to 2 different irrigation companies, 1 letter to one irrigation company, and then 3 letters to essentially the same irrigation company, but different departments. And so the one letter, we finally heard just a day and a half ago that they're going to sign that document on the 3rd. So they're going to sign that, and then we'll have that. The other irrigation company has been giving us some pushback a little bit. I think mainly just doing their due diligence. I think once we start actually going through the legal process and putting a little bit more pressure, I think ultimately they'll either just sign it or, they don't really have any ground to stand on. So they'll either sign it or the judge will rule in our favor. Ideally, they just sign it and it makes the process easier, but we don't necessarily need that either. But yeah, this is just a weird situation. We knew about it before we closed. We knew we were going to have to go through this process. We knew it was going to take some time. It's just a great property, so the juice is worth the squeeze. Great area of the town, and even recently we've gotten some great comparables that are really like make this project even worth more than what we thought initially. So let's see. So the next steps we have so the attorney is posting in the Boise and the Denver papers. They have to do that 4 weeks in a row starting next week. That's basically the legal process in order to get that quiet title complaint resolved. And then I'm also submitting floor plans and elevations to the city to get that initial review done and the IDR meeting scheduled. So basically I'll do that next week, and then we'll be right on track to align with the quiet title complaint. So I can show you kind of some snapshots of I don't think I had this ready last month, or up to show. These are just some snapshots of like the rough floor plans. But this is the main level on the smaller house. So we have a single car garage. There's a lengthy driveway back here. But then you have, access here. There's a closet, half bathroom, stairs going up. Sorry, this is going up or down actually. And then the kitchen area and a living room, and then up here, so you come up to the top of the stairs here, we have a, a larger primary suite here with closet and desk space, and then we have a shared bathroom here with this middle bedroom. This is a little bit smaller bedroom, and then another bedroom on the end here that has its own kind of primary suite as well. So we have basically a Jack and Jill bathroom and then a primary. So this is 3 bedrooms on the top or the second floor. Then we have the main level, and then and these are kind of so this is a um what do they call this? I'm missing the term. But anyway, it's not a full basement, it's like a half basement. So it's kind of elevated. This first floor, you take a few steps up. We'll also ramp the driveway up. And then this won't be fully underground. It'll be like 4 or 5 feet below the existing grade. And then we have this is 2 additional bedrooms with a Jack and Jill bathroom downstairs. So overall, this is a 5 bedroom house. I'm kind of going off of my memory here, but I think it's about 1,900 square feet, I want to say. And then we have this other house next to it that we're doing that will be a little bit deeper. And what that allows us to do, and it's just the way the lot is angled, gives us more space, so it's deeper. So similar floor plan where we'll have a half bathroom underneath the stairs here. It'll actually have a larger kitchen, dining, and living room up on the main floor. And then upstairs, we actually have it as 4 bedrooms. And then this will have 2 primary suites, then a Jack and Jill bathroom. So it'll be, great rental for that. So 4 bedrooms up here, with 3 full bathrooms, half bathroom on the main level. And then this downstairs is actually going to be its own ADU. So we'll actually have a separate ADU in the basement. It'll have its entrance from the rear yard. And then that'll have 2 bedrooms, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, or yeah, 2 bedroom, 2 bath. This isn't fully completed yet, but it'll be 2 bedroom, 2 bath ADU in the basement, and this one's a little bit bigger. I think around 2,300 square feet, if I remember right. I'll have to look at that again because it's been a little while since I've looked at those numbers. Okay, so that's Boise Avenue. I'm excited for the progress on that next month because we'll actually be finally ready to, start submitting stuff to the city. So that's exciting. All right, and then we have another cottage village that we were going to partner with the homeowner. This one is on pause. Basically, the homeowner kind of got cold feet. I think just a lot of indecision, and she's lived there for a long time. It's understandable. She's just a little bit emotional about the property. So she was looking at different options, maybe, putting half of the maximum amount of cottages on it, or doing 2 ADUs instead of, developing it. And ultimately, those numbers just don't pencil very well or at all. So, and ultimately, if I'm going to pause or if I'm going to partner on something with somebody, we're going to develop it to its, maximum fullest use. And if we can't do that, then it doesn't make any sense to partner on it. So, she can ultimately do whatever she wants, and I'll, do it for her if she, hires our team to do it. But it doesn't really pencil for her either if we're not maximizing the highest and best use of it. So we're just on pause for now. I think she'll ultimately probably end up doing something. She just needs a little bit more time. And I think as she sees some of these other projects coming to fruition on these cottages, I think she'll get excited about it. So we'll keep checking back with her every couple months. Then we have these Latah cottages. This is I think it's going to end up being 22 unit cottage development on the bench. So last month the school district requested that we do a traffic impact study instead of fighting that, which, now that we got it, I would like wish we probably should have fought it a little bit because ultimately it came back with exactly what the ACHD policy was, which the school then agreed to after saying they didn't like that. So ultimately, it was like one of those things where we're between a rock and a hard place, and we probably could have pushed back, but we also just wanted to move forward. And so we spent that expense to get that impact study done. It wasn't outrageously expensive, but we got it done. The school districts and ACHD agree on the driveway access. And so we also got some initial engineering and site planning done. So that's actually really exciting. Um, so let me show you. The one thing I noticed when they sent it back, though, is that they based this off one of my early drawings. And so we have some, modifications to do here, but now that we have the driveway access, the next step for me, we're going to this garage or the Republic Services for the trash pickup. We're gonna run this by them and make sure they're okay with this before we do any other, major changes or major submittals, because what we don't want to happen is that ACHD, or not ACHD, Republic Services kicks it back and we have to do a redesign after we've already spent all the time on doing everything else. So we're gonna run this by them, make sure they're okay. That shouldn't take too long, most likely a day or two. They're usually pretty good about responding. And then what we did notice previously too is that these fence lines with the neighbors don't line up with the property line. So on my newest site plans, I actually accounted for this because we don't want to get into a lengthy legal battle with where the property lines and fence lines are. And apparently there was some adjustments made in the past. So anyway, we don't want to argue with that. We're just going to adjust our site plan accordingly. So it's hopefully not in major issues. So that's where we're at. This site has 25 units on it. I think we're going to end up with 22, possibly 23, but we underwrote it with 22. So no big change there. We just are going to end up with fewer units like we expected. But what I will say too is, so they stopped the driveway short here, which also means that a fire truck hose can't reach these last two units. So I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm gonna look into the fires for what it'll cost to put these last two units on fire sprinklers, because that gives us uh potentially an extra unit. Um, and that could make up for not make up for uh if we can get this an additional unit on over here and the profitability makes sense versus 22 units, and we got all the parking that we needed already, we might actually keep this layout with this many units. We also have to check the fire, like the setbacks between units. So a lot of this, again, I changed on later drawings, but then the engineer kind of went off my early drawings. But we have a couple things to check on before we send it back to the engineer to make all those changes, because ultimately we don't want to make a bunch of changes that we don't need to. We want to go in with more of a scalpel on what kind of changes we need to make. So that's where we're at, but it's exciting that we got this, and I'm hoping we can submit this application in June, and then it's an administrative approval. So if we can submit it in June, I think by maybe July, August, possibly August, maybe September, we would have a administrative approval, and then you have a couple months of engineering reviews, the civil plans, and then once those are stamped, we get to work right away. So we're still anticipating probably breaking ground either at the end of this year or early next year. And even talking to the guy that's buying it, I think early next year is his preference anyway, for different reasons, but I think that's what we're looking at. So, um, yeah, so we just have a few things to work through there, but I think we'll be able to submit that application hopefully in June. All right, and then we have one last project that we actually just this last week, I think Sunday maybe. Yeah, or Saturday. So just on Saturday, they got this under contract. So we had obviously the holiday weekend. So we're on our fourth business day here, but yeah, it's a project in Garden City, another one that we love, right on Adams Street and 45th. there's an existing home on it. We have two different options to go towards this, so we're gonna analyze this more in depth and more apples to apples on like fix and flip the existing home, and then also build four more townhomes, or do it in two phases. So don't put a lot of money into the house, but then do the four townhomes, rent the house as is. Once those four townhomes are done, then tear down the house and build three more townhomes. So I think that option probably has more upside, but it takes longer. Um, and then the yeah, before I show you the pictures, I guess the other cool thing about this, the big win, is that there was multiple offers. They actually had four offers, I believe, and three of them were full price, and we came in under asking. And what I hear is that it was just the listing agent talked to all the lenders, and he talked to one of our lender partners that we have a great relationship with, and that our lender partner that's going to fund this kind of solidified the deal for us. He was pretty confident that this could get done the way that we were looking at it, and so that always helps. So having great partners, both realtors and lenders, and every other person that there's dozens and dozens of companies and hundreds of people that work on these deals through all the through every phase. And so having a great team in place sometimes is the difference between getting a deal done and not getting a deal done. And for sure, getting a deal done the right way versus not the right way. So huge shout out to our lender partner who kind of solidified that and helped get this deal under contract. So yeah, basically now we're just going through due diligence. I think we have about 30 days. I think they told us 20 business days. I'll have to look at the contract again. But we're gonna start full steam ahead on that. We've already kind of we went to the property yesterday, took a look at it. We're aware of what we need to do moving forward, but it should be a fairly straightforward due diligence process. So we're getting that meeting scheduled with Hannah Veal at Planning and Zoning, and then getting through the due diligence checklist. And then just to show you kind of what our rendering showed here. So this is what those four townhomes could potentially look like. So we're gonna have, my site plan had two larger, wider units on the ends with double car garages, and then we can put ADUs above as well, which I think we might go down that route. We'll analyze it different ways, but that could be a really cool product for Garden City. And then the middle units would have smaller or narrower garages with just single car garages. Um, uh, and then these would be either single car wide or tandem. Well, sorry, single car and two bedrooms, I believe, or just tandem. We also have sorry, we actually have the driveway space as well, which meets our parking requirements. Let me back up. And then we also have the extra parking on these driveways, which provides the guest parking. So either way, this setup works, but we might provide additional garages. Then we have three-story townhomes back here. We could potentially, because of the detached garages, we might even be able to get we might be able to get the square footage on two levels if we made them deeper and didn't have space between the garages and townhomes. So we're gonna, we're basically in the beginning stages. We do this at a analysis at a high level. We have confidence in our high level, but then once we have it under contract, we really dive deep into the due diligence and analyze all the different possibilities and make sure we're going the best, highest and best use, most profitability based on our clients' goals. And then also, just the best path forward, and then also just getting through all the tricky things with each lot. Every single development deal has some kind of challenge with it. So every lot is different and new. And so you have things that come up with every single deal that's unexpected typically. So that's what that due diligence is all about. And we have a 200-point checklist that we go through, and we cover pretty much, now that we have our system in place, we uncover probably more of those issues in our due diligence than I'm pretty confident more than almost any other developer is going to find. So, yeah, that's about it for our projects. We'll keep you posted on all of our projects as we move forward. We're looking forward to chatting with everybody at the end of next month for the next round of updates. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys next month or on our weekly Friday calls to get these deals done.